Hi guys, we're moving on to manufacturing overhead calculation today. All right. So the last couple videos, we talked about how to calculate the direct material cost for our product and the direct labor cost for our product. Now we're on to manufacturing overhead. So think of any other materials or costs that are involved to make your product that are not already captured in the DM or the DL, and that's going to be your MO. So in my video, you notice that I also was wearing gardening gloves, very fashionable, and that I was going to need a gardening trowel or gardening spade to help me plant those items. And if there was anything else that I used, I would go ahead and list that here too. That's pretty much it for me, nice and simple. Move these down. But if you have any other supplies, like if you're baking, you might need to include your mixing bowls, your baking sheets, parchment paper, measuring cups, things like that, right? So those would be all here in MO. All right, so let me go up and kind of calculate or steal these headers up here. Okay, so I made sure to look and see how much my gardening gloves and gardening trowel were. So my gardening gloves, $8.99. My gardening trowel, $4.99. Sales tax is still the same. I'm gonna copy this format. Copy formats. So the sales tax. And multiply. Oh no, I did a fancy formula. So let me go copy that one. I have to rework it. I did the price plus 100% plus the sales tax. So let me just go copy it since I already did all that work. All right, so there is my complete cost for my overhead items, my gloves and trowel. Remember to include sales tax since we had to pay that. So there's our total cost. Now we want to take this total cost and allocate it over all the units you think you're going to be able to use that item. Okay, so I think my gardening gloves will last me about 2 years is the life that I'm estimating on that. So I think 2-year life for that. My gardening trowel, if I'm good to it, I'm going to say a 3-year life. My last gardening trowel I left out in the water, like I left out and it got rained on and sprinkled on, and so it rusted and just died. So if I'm better with it, maybe 3 years. That estimate is up to you based on if you've used these materials before. If not, maybe you can look it up online. But I think those are fair estimates. And so I'm going to divide it by how many units I expect to make within that time frame, right? So total life. I'll probably move this over a little bit so I can still have room for my source citation, which was Ace Hardware. Okay. So my total life there, how many units do I expect to make in that year? So units expected. So if you remember, I said I just want to make one planting installation every week. I don't want to kill myself for this to take over my life. It's more of a hobby, really. So if I was to do one a week and I want to take 2 weeks off for vacation, so that would be 50 units per year that I expect to make, 50 units per year. And I am going to estimate for 2 years based on this life. So it's 100 years I expect to be able to use these gardening gloves before I have to replace them. The gardening trowel, so now just the 50 units times 3 years. So 150. Okay, so you're just going to spread over that cost. So total cost. And yeah, let's do cost per unit. I want to show my work a little bit. Total cost, units expected equals, to do a plus sign. Life in units. Maybe that's a better heading. Like depreciation, right? So there's your total cost, there's your expected life in units. And so this will then give us 2 equals divided. Cost per unit. And I'll go ahead and make that look a little prettier by wrapping the alignments. There we go. And maybe I'll do it over here too. Okay. And put bottom borders on those. And let me copy that formula down. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So we're taking the price for these overhead items. Make sure we include any sales tax, or if you had to pay for delivery of these items, you need to include that into the cost. And go ahead and then divide by the expected life, how long you're going to be able to use that item. Okay, so that gives me a cost of 10 cents per glove and 4 cents per glove. If you have very, very small amounts, like you get into fractions of the pennies, then you might want to consider rolling them up into one, especially with baking. If you're using like measuring spoons, measuring cups, baking tins, you might just want to roll them up into one category and just say miscellaneous baking items or something like that. Okay, let's add this up. Equals sum these two, enter. And then I'll go ahead and give myself a nice little bold border, and I'll say total MO cost, and Control B to make it bold. Where I think a lot of you are going to have other items, I'm going on site to the customer location, so I don't have any rent to allocate. But if this is a product that you're making at home, if you're baking cookies, for example, you're going to have to allocate part of your rent, part of your utilities, part of your property tax to that product. So let me quickly show you a sample of that. So if I had to allocate rent, utilities, let's say that included in our rent, like we don't have to pay any property taxes. That's all taken care of by a landlord. So just rent and utilities is our burden. So then you'll put what your total cost is. Let's say we pay rent of $3,000 and we pay rent or utilities of like $150. Okay. So this is just an example for those of you that have it in your projects, because you might. So if that's the price, then you're going to calculate it per square foot. So what's the cost per square foot? Cost per square foot. So you'll need to figure out how many square feet is your apartment. Square feet. So let's say you're renting a 1,000 square foot apartment. So the cost per square foot. And there you go. Increase those decimals. Oops. Okay. And then you're going to measure how much of your apartment or home are you using to manufacture your product. So again, if you're baking cookies, it's going to be the space that you're using in your kitchen. So go ahead and measure it with your own feet or with a tape measure, and that's fine. So let's say we measure it and we say we're using about 100 square feet. So square feet used for manufacturing. We'll say it's 100. So square footage is the most common form of allocation for rent and utilities. So that's why we're using square footage, because you're paying rent based on the size space that you have, and then just measure the size space that you're using to make your product. So this is cost for manufacturing area. Equals $3 per square foot times 100 square feet. Okay, so there's your cost, but you're not done yet, because that's pretty high for it to be per unit. We haven't stated it per unit yet. So then you have to divide it based on units made per month. Yay, it formatted that one for me. Yay, happy day. Okay, so let's say that we are making, I don't know, 50 cookies per month. And again, that would be based on the individual's work schedule. So then cost per unit equals, so then your cost per unit, so it's $6 per cookie, which is a lot. we should make more cookies, and 30 cents of utilities is the cost per unit. So I just wanted to show that because a lot of you are going to have to do that if you are making your product indoors. If you're making it in your apartment, anywhere, in your home anywhere, you're going to have to allocate your rent or mortgage cost and utilities. So again, the most common base is square footage. And then once you divide all that, that gives you the cost per month. But then you have to divide it by how many units you're going to make in the month. So cost per month, and then divide by units per month to get the cost per unit. That's what we're trying to get, is the cost per unit. So I just wanted to show you that. Luckily, that doesn't apply to me in this case, because I'm going to go travel to my individual clients, because I'm not going to bring their potter plants or their planter boxes to my house and work on them and bring them back, right? So I'm more of an on-site contractor, I guess you could say. All right, so hopefully that helped you with your MO. Brainstorm all your overhead costs that you see, and then go through your calculations. All right, let me know if you have questions.